Welcome to the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show, a real estate investment program. Listen and learn how to use real estate to build wealth and passive income streams for you and your family. We bring you experts every day to discuss and answer your questions on everything from single-family homes all the way up to 600-plus unit apartment complexes. And now, the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is Andy Webb with Lifestyles Unlimited. And as always, we are working on your your financial freedom. I think I tipped my hand on the topic today. I've got it on my mind. So, we talk about it all the time on the show. At Lifestyles Unlimited, we achieve our financial freedom by investing in residential rental real estate, right? Creating cash flow, creating wealth. And I'll tell you that becoming a successful investor, it starts by building a strong foundation, getting an education, finding a successful mentor to show you the way, and building your team. And that's where the foundation that I've got on my head comes in. Here's a scenario for you. You've decided to become a real estate investor. You've started building that team. You've hooked up with a realtor and you're out looking at your first house, and you pull up, you get out of your car. You're still standing in the street looking at this house, and well, the roof line, it seems a bit off. It's dropping to one side, and you approach the front door, and the door trim, it's pulled away from the brick line on the left side. In fact, it's so bad, the door's sticking, you can't even open it. So you head around the outside of the house to the back, and you pass a gap in the bricks, and you can put your hand inside the darn thing. Oh boy. So you go inside, and, you immediately get vertigo walking from one side of the house to the other down this massive slope. Something's clearly wrong with the foundation, right? That much is apparent. It seems bad, but is it? And that's an important question to ask. Do you just bolt? Do you run? Is this a quote-unquote deal that's going to be dead in the water already? No. In fact, you might be able to pick up a house like this for a steal, for such a massive discount that, you'll build considerable equity from day one. Like we talk about on the show, we love those houses, but what about that foundation? Well, we just mentioned building your team. And if you are investing in Texas, and it doesn't matter where, you will need a foundation expert on your team. You're going to need somebody to look at that very house and tell you how bad is it or not, right? How bad is it? What needs to be done? And at what cost? And today I've got an expert with us on the show. We're going to talk about evaluating that foundation, repairing it so you have a solid asset going forward, and performing ongoing maintenance of that foundation so that those issues don't present again. So today I'm joined by Jayson Paff. He's with Straight Line Foundation Repair. He's an evaluation specialist there. And just a brief background, Straight Line's been a vendor with Lifestyles for a long time now. Since 2014, they're rated 5 out of 5 stars on our vendor hub by members, right? We go out, we use these vendors, and then we rate them, right? So that you, as a fellow member, know good or bad or, whatever. And in fact, I can remember meeting these guys years ago, 2014, in fact, at a single family road trip way back then. And I learned a ton then, and you're going to learn a ton today. Jayson, hey, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing very well. Enjoying this cooler weather, this rain that we've finally gotten, right? It's been great. So, hey,
yes. Much better than hot,
Absolutely, and impacts our foundation, right? But we'll get to that. To start the show, though, just tell us a little bit about Straight Line Foundation Repair, and tell us what your role is there at the company, and a little bit about yourself, if you would.
So I'm an evaluator. I'm the guy that you'll be interacting with if you give us a call and we come out. I've been doing this for about 4 years or so. I started off running a crew a long time ago, went away from doing foundation repair, came back, started doing it again. I've done a lot of different things. I've been a mechanic. I'm prior service military, was in the Army for a while. I've got a lot of different things, different experience under my belt. Straight Line started in 2008, actually, in the midst of the housing crisis. So we're kind of fire tempered as a company. This whole year too has been rough, but we haven't stopped. We've been hard charging, and we take pride in being there for Lifestyles. We definitely take pride in that 5-star rating. We bust our tails to make sure that investors are getting the right deal. And what you described opening up the show was what I would call an opportunity, not a problem.
I agree with you.
When you're looking for houses, you want to be, when you're a buyer, when you're on the front end, those are opportunities, not something to run screaming away from,
Not at all. Rocky foundation, okay, no problem. Roof is shot, hey, no problem. Smells like cat and dog stuff inside. That's great. That's easy to solve.
That's the money smell.
Absolutely. And I looked back at my portfolio we've accrued over the years, and fully 75% of them I've had to do some level of foundation repair. Some of those have had, the majority of those really have had slab foundations that we've repaired, but we've got a handful of pier and beam homes in our portfolio as well. And every single one of those we've had to do some work. So maybe we can start with the basics. I just mentioned slab and pier and beam. Those are common here in Texas. What other types are out there, and maybe what are the pros and cons of the more common foundations that we encounter, just in general?
So typically, most of the time, if you're talking about single-family homes, you're talking about slab and pier and beam homes. You've got different variations on the pier and beam setup. You've got, an exterior concrete grade beam style pier and beam. You've got poured-in-place concrete supports underneath a pier and beam. You've got block and base supports. You've got, if you get real old, you've got some what are called boat art. They essentially look like, a tree, big piece of a tree holding up the house. Slabs, you've got your post-tension slab, and you've got your traditional rebar style slab. Those are pretty much going to be the biggest things that the most that you come in contact with. Slab homes, I mean, they're going to be the quote unquote best and most reliable foundation you run into. The benefits of them are they're pretty solid. You can depend on them being pretty decent throughout DFW for the most part. When you do have to do repairs on those, it's usually pretty expensive on the front end, and you understand that.
Okay. Hey, let me interrupt you there. I've got the music piping into my ears here, so we're going to head into a break. When we come back, first of all, I want to give out the number. If you've got questions for Jayson on foundation, evaluation, repair, maintenance, we can get into your questions. Otherwise, we're going to conduct the show and talk about those three topics when we come back. You're listening to the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show.
Warning, listening to the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show will change your life. We will teach you how to create wealth and passive income so you can be financially free. And now, back to your host.
For today's show, we've got Jayson Paff with us. He's with Straight Line Foundation Repair. We've brought on an expert to talk about one of those big five. We've talked about these in earlier shows, some of those budget busters if you miss them, right? You want to catch that, the electrical, the roof, the HVAC, the plumbing, and of course, today the topic is foundation. I want to give you the number here in the studio. If you have any questions for me, or more importantly for Jayson, call us. Number is 855-497-4335. Again, that's 855-497-4335, or send me an email to askandy@luinc.com. We do occasionally pick those up on air as well. Now, we were talking, Jayson, ahead of the break about the two more common foundation types here, at least in Texas. And I think you see these both in North Texas, where you and I are, as well as South Central Texas. That's the slab foundation, and then that's the pier and beam. When did we transition from a pier and beam to more of a slab preference, I guess, here in our market as far as building houses goes?
It seems around about the 50s, maybe somewhere around there, and you're going to get a little bit of both around that time frame. I've looked at pier and beam houses like up to like the 60s, and pier and beams are very versatile. They could be built on almost any sort of soil system. Especially here in Texas, so they'll move and change very easily with the soil, with the rain and the no rain that we get. The two seasons we have in Texas, rain and no rain, right? So they shift pretty easy on the backside of that. So the worst thing about a pier and beam is it shifts really easy. So there's a little bit of a overlap with slab and pier and beam. You'll get some around the same decade, right there in the 50s and 60s.
Sure. And again, thinking about from my experience, I think the bulk of ours that we've bought in the 50s are pier and beam. I've got one or two that are slab. Interestingly, I'm moving a family into a house today over in the mid cities, and it's, most of Texas up here anyhow, it's a clay soil, but there's this patch of sandy soil. That slab has not moved since it was built, and I love it. It's very unusual, but to your point,
you got a diamond.
Absolutely. But just down the road from it, I've got a couple of my pier and beam homes, and they are on clay, and they do move, but they close back up. The thing I like, and for the investors out there, the thing I like about those is the easy access underneath to the plumbing, right? Especially if you've gone in and done some foundation work for me, and that old cast iron, because it's a 50s build, has cracked and broken. It's easy to access. Now, if you go in and lift my pier and beam house and my slab foundation and it's got cast iron underneath, I'm probably going in and addressing that as well. So that's kind of one of the pros and cons between the two of those. Now, I'm curious, you mentioned post-tension slab foundations. What other building practices have changed specific to slabs over the years that we might want to know about as we've gone from the 50s to the 90s and then to the 2020s?
So, the obviously a newer home, within the last 30 years or so, the building regulations they've been tightened down. I tell people a lot in the early 80s in DFW, building a house was like the Wild West. There's a lot of builders that came through here that just kind of poured a slab in the old way they wanted to. And they kind of got away with it. Now, I would say post-tension is going to be almost every house that you encounter that's probably about 20 years old, you're going to have post-tension, and that's the new standard. I tell people early 80s, what you really need to be looking about, and you touched on it just a second ago, is that what type of piping it has. Cast iron was the way to go up until around 85, 84, 85, 86. And again, there's some overlap there too, going to PVC. So when you're looking at these older homes, keep that in mind as well. What type of plumbing are we talking about? That's the biggest issue.
Absolutely. And you can send your plumber out there with a camera if you need to get a look. Sometimes you'll see the cleanouts in the front yard. That may give you a tip off. I've seen 80s builds with cast iron. A lot of the builders, they had that cast iron inventory, and they built with that inventory till they exhausted it. So you're right. Yep. Assuming 1978 and older is cast iron, everything else newer is PVC, maybe. But it's a bit of a start, but I would do a little more due diligence. And I'm curious, just thinking about both types of foundations, what are the most common causes of problems for a slab or a pier and beam foundation here in Texas?
So the two most common causes for foundation issues in Texas are too much water or not enough water. That's typically going to be and like I said earlier, that's the two seasons we have in Texas: too much water and not enough water. And what happens is over time, just lack of maintenance, or maybe it was a rental property and no one's doing their due diligence on that. Just over time, the house gets out of whack. And then on top of that, just our natural soils. All houses in Texas move. It's just how much are they moving?
Sure, and we didn't really talk about your territory, your coverage as a company. I think you guys are primarily here in DFW and out in Abilene. Is that right? Do you go any further south?
Yes. I've gone as far south as a little past Hillsboro in that area.
Okay.
I believe we're exploring going to Waco. We've gone as far northeast as Clarksville. That's kind of really far out there. North Denison. That's pretty far. But for the most part, we do most of our work in that DFW, Abilene area.
Sure. And you guys, I know you're headquartered just a little west of Fort Worth. I did a road trip with Lifestyles back before the pandemic. My wife and I drove down to San Antonio, right, to take a look at that market. And San Antonio is interesting because they'll tell you I forget the direction. I think it's from northeast to southwest. There's basically a line if you draw it across San Antonio. One side has foundation issues, the other doesn't, due to the way the soil has changed. But Generally, we've got that clay, and that's where that water. It's interesting. I saw a presentation years ago at Lifestyles where they brought in a kind of a jar of clay and poured water in it, and it just waited a little bit, and that it expanded massively. And that's what's happening when it rains, right? And then it dries and it dries out. So I was going to ask you, too much water or too little, which is worse? But I guess any extreme is going to be bad.
Either one, really. We went in the past 3, 4, 5 years, I guess you could say. We've had unseasonable amounts of rain for what was it? A couple of years ago, it rained for what it felt like 3 months. And then here recently, this recent summer has been one of the driest we've had in a handful of years. So, and then we get dumped on in the last week, one extreme to the next, boom, back and forth, and your house, no matter whether it's a pier beam or a slab, it is just rocking and rolling with that stuff. So I tell people all the time, getting gutters, even for investors, if it's a long-term buy and hold investment, a rental home, putting those gutters up might not be a bad idea, because when you're eventually ready to let go of that house, finding that high point in the market to get rid of some rental properties, if that's what you're trying to do, doing a little bit of maintenance on the front end when you get into it will pay off on the back end for sure.
Absolutely. And I know I've talked with you guys before about drainage solutions, gutters, French drains, that sort of thing. We may get to a little bit more of that towards the end of the show. When we come back, I want to get into what you do when you walk a property, in terms of evaluation, and then get into the repair side. So stick around.
Okay.
Welcome back to the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show. It's time to turn up the volume and fine-tune your passive income plan so you can create the lifestyle you've always wanted.
Welcome back to the show. This is Andy Webb, and today I'm joined by Jayson Paff. He is with Straight Line Foundation Repair, and obviously we are talking about all things foundation. If you've got any questions for him, the number here in the studio is 855-497-4335. And Jayson, if you don't mind, what is the number for Straight Line? If someone needs to get a foundation evaluation done, they're looking at that first investment property, what number do they call?
You need to call that Metro number. It's 817-640-1000. You call in there and you talk to Sheena. She does all of our repairs or our appointment scheduling. You can also go to go ahead.
Oh no, please continue.
But you can also go to www.straightlinefoundationrepair.com, and we have the ability to set appointments on our website as well.
Got it. And as with any vendor, I've worked with multiple foundation companies over the years. It's a big budget item, so I'll often get multiple bids, quite frankly. And you guys, as with any of the others at Lifestyles, the evaluation is free. So if you're out there listening right now and you schedule with a foundation repair company and they're trying to charge you for that evaluation, that's already telling you something is wrong there. Now, let's talk about the evaluation. So you pull up to the house. We as investors, maybe even before we engage you, we've pulled up to the house the first time we're looking at the thing. What is it that you do when you get to that house? What is it that we should be doing by comparison before we even engage you? So kind of 2 points of view. Investor, what should I be looking for? And Jayson, what are you looking for when you walk that house?
Okay, so my main goal on the front of on anything when I'm dealing with investors, I want them to be educated and to understand what they're getting into whenever they're purchasing a home. Investors, homeowners, everyone I encounter, I want you to be educated, because this is sometimes, I know investors, they buy lots of houses, but every house bought is a huge investment. So I want them to be as educated as I am about just visual telltale signs. So whenever I walk into a house, first thing I do, if I'm starting on the outside, I'm walking around while I'm doing my drawing, and I'm looking at the exterior visual cues that I would get. So freeze boards pooching out or brick cracks that are going, pretty obvious brick cracks. And you touched on something like that at the very beginning of the show. If you can stick your hand in it, it's probably a problem. Cracks around windows, I'm looking at the grade of the lot that the house is sitting on. Do we have a drainage issue? Do we have gutters? That sort of thing as I'm walking around the house. I'm looking at how doors fit. I'm looking at, again, do we have telltale cracks in the garage? Do we have on the exterior garage wall? That wall is going to move the most because it's the lightest portion of the home. When I walk in, the first thing I do is I just start walking. I don't look. What I tell investors is don't look at the flooring. Don't look at the color of the walls. Don't look at don't have an idea what new ceiling paints you're going to put in, okay? Walk that house. It's the first time you've been in there. It's the best time to understand what's going on with that house. You walk it. I usually put my head down a little bit and just kind of get a feel. And I walk a house while I'm doing my evaluation with the zip level. I walk a house probably about 5 to 8 times while I'm there. Just while I'm walking it, I'm getting a feel, and it's kind of like a burn-in. You'll feel things a little more the longer you've been there. And like I said, for investors, and you've touched on it again. It's one of the biggest things you're going to have to deal with. Everything about a house is built on the foundation. That's not just the foundation guy saying that. That's just common sense. If the foundation's not right, that nice bathroom you're going to put in there, it ain't going to be right either. So.
Or let me relate a quick story. If that foundation is down 7 inches in one corner, and you're looking outside, and you get this beautiful 30-year roof they just put on 2 years ago, we bought a house like this. Well, what happened when we lifted the foundation? The whole roof buckled.
That big wrinkle.
Couldn't insure it until we repaired it. Yeah, it was something else. Now, I'm just curious. I've talked on prior shows with an inspector, for example, about a hoarder house. Now, you go into a hoarder house. You mentioned a zip level a minute ago, which is that high-tech tool that you're using to get the measurements of the foundation. Does it need repair or not? How do you take measurements in a hoarder house?
Very carefully.
A little bit risky.
Yes, it is. And those are very challenging. And sometimes if it could be a hazard, we ask that gets handled before we come in. And I know as an investor on the front end of a deal, that's probably a no-go. But I can deal with some things, it just depends on what type of biohazard we're talking about.
Sure.
And I'm just leading onto that. So with a hoarder house, so you get the readings you can where you can. You're not going to dig through 40 years of Sports Illustrated to get a reading, but it's going to be it's a challenge. And I usually blanket my maps with anywhere between 2 to 5 or more readings per room. But I can glean some knowledge with less reading. There are going to be struggles with something like that. And I will let you know, hey, I couldn't get into the garage because I opened the door and it was wall-to-wall bags of dog food or whatever's going on there. Those are blind spots that we have to work through. Maybe something that we kind of roll the dice on a little bit.
Not just roll the dice, but as an educated investor, work into my price. That now becomes a negotiation point for me when I'm working with that seller, right? Hey, look, explain the problem and adjust accordingly. Now, we've gotten all the evaluation done. We've got your recommendation. We know what the budget is. We close on the house. We get you in there. What does the foundation repair? What does that normally look like, say, for a slab foundation? What are you typically doing?
So usually it's the concrete press pier. That's going to be the majority of all, residential houses, unless we're talking like a 2-story with like these, massive amounts of decorative rock on it. If it's a very heavy structure, it's all going to be concrete press pier. That's the most versatile repair that you can use. It's cheap. It's not as expensive as the steel or a drilled pier or any of these other types of proprietary type of lifting and concrete press piers. You're going to get the same warranty as you would if you spent a lot of money on those other things, and they hold up real well. If you drive to a point of refusal, and you're good to go for a while. And on top of that, if anything does go wonky, you've got our lifetime warranty. So nothing that can't be planned for.
Sure, and I'll address this. We typically are not holding these for our lifetime, right? We're going in, we're putting the best product on the market, we're pricing it well, putting a family in there for maybe 3 to 5 years, and then when the time comes to move into maybe multiple assets, maybe in multifamily, we're selling, right? So these serve their purpose for us. They hold longer than that. I mean, I've held assets for 8 years now and had no issues, and we've always used the pressed concrete. I know the other stuff is out there; it's pricey. Everyone swears by it. The guys that are selling it, of course, but I would say, good run as an investor, run with the pressed pilings easily. Now that's for a slab. What about pier and beam? What commonly are you doing in terms of repairs there?
So usually pier and beams, where the rubber really meets the road on a pier and beam is the condition of the wood underneath. Do we have rotten wood? Do we have broken beams, broken joists, rotten sill plate, rotten subfloor? That's really where the money starts to take off. Pier and beams can be, if they've been maintained fairly well, it could be something as simple as just a reset, reshim throughout the center. If you've got a concrete exterior beam on those pier and beams, you might have to do some pressed piers on that concrete because the interior of the house is going to shift at a different rate than the exterior of the house. And then those concrete exterior beams are going to act like a slab. They're going to dip and they're going to rise just like anything else, and the only way to fix that is to lift it with the concrete.
And we've done a number of pier and beam houses, and we've done every single thing you have spoken about, and it's been great. Result has been great, and we've loved it. And I'll tell you what, we're going to head into a break. We've got one more segment coming up. I'll give out the number when we come back. If you've got any final questions for Jayson, stay tuned.
One of the things I'd like to get across is that your whole life you wanted to make a change, right? But you've never had the time. This might be it, because we have online education that you can get involved in.
We're now going to bring the free workshop to the entire country and really the world. Anybody who is interested can participate in that. We're going to live stream that free workshop and have people online with you on the live stream, talking with you, answering questions, interacting. You're really going to get a great feel for the Lifestyles community from this. And you can register for that. So if you want to find out about us, this is a great way to take a look at us and what we do.
Lifestyles Unlimited has been helping people succeed since 1990. Join us for our free online real estate workshop and learn the 7 principles we teach to run our businesses and provide for our families. Register at lifestylesunlimitedworkshop.com. That's lifestylesunlimitedworkshop.com.
We're back with the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show. We're here to answer your questions and help you become financially free.
Welcome back to the show. This is Andy Webb, and today we are talking about foundations, foundation repair, foundation evaluation. We're about to talk about maintenance. Can you maintain a foundation? You sure can. And I've seen plenty of houses where they haven't done it, and then I've had to go in and do the fix. Hey, it is our last segment. If you've got any questions for Jayson, the number here is 855-497-4335, or send me questions to askandy@luinc.com. Now, Jayson, in the last segment, we were talking about repair. And by the way, if you missed any of the earlier part of the show, you can check it out at lifestylesunlimited.com. This will be converted to a podcast and out there for you to hear, as well as all the others done by the other hosts, Al Gordon, Mike Harrison, and of course, Del Walmsley and the Del Walmsley Radio Show. So be sure to check those out. But last segment, we were talking about repair, and I've taken the time when we've had foundation repair done here and again on houses to go out and watch. And can you describe how it is that you are lifting a slab foundation of a house? What is going on there mechanically? It's pretty neat.
So what we do is when you're digging a hole, let's just say, we're digging a hole about the size of a man, about 3 foot wide, about 3 foot off of the side of the house on a slab. You dig down about 4 or 5 feet and dig up underneath the house about a foot or so. You're using a hydraulic ram to press piers into the ground until you hit a point of refusal. And what that means is the pressure at the bottom of the hole to press one more pier exceeds the weight of the home. And when we see that, what we're doing is when we're pressing with the ram, is you'll see the house pop up, and we'll release the pressure, and And that's probably what you felt when you had it done to your house, is the house was going up and then coming back down, up and down, up and down.
It's interesting. I was telling Jayson over the break, I work from, I'm at home. I'm working from home. The office, the furthest corner that we had to lift, this was a couple years ago, is, I guess I would call it 2 bedrooms away. And it's kind of creepy when you're sitting in there and the whole house is heaving and moaning and groaning. But watching it from the outside, it's really interesting to see. I mean, the whole house lifts and then it pushes that pier down, right? And you do it again, like you said, until you can't do it anymore. Hey, I'll tell you what, I've got a caller here on the line. I've got Barbara here in Texas. Let me see if I can get her on the air. Barbara, are you with us today?
Yes, I am. Hi, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to the show. Do you have a question for Jayson?
Yes, I do. I planned on using my house for some rental income when I retire, probably in 15 years or so. And when I bought it new, I had it inspected, but it was a local person recommended to me, and they did not inspect the foundation. I live in San Antonio. As it turns out, yes, I have expansive clay soil, and I have a lot of nice cracks on the walls and outside and the flooring, and, I mean, it's still livable and everything. And I do water it. I dug a trench at 12 inches from the house and have PVC channel and cross channel there, and we have a soaker hose inside that, so we can readily replace the soaker hose when we need to. And my question really is, how often do I water it? And I can't see down in there and know what's going on. I water the front and back of the yard, which is sewer escape, once a week as allowed for about 2 hours. And I don't know if I'm overwatering, underwatering, and didn't know if you would have any tips on that, 'cause I would like to turn this into a rental. Currently, when I go on vacation, I pay someone to come water the foundation, and the inspector who inspected my house told me I needed 36 exterior supports and 26 interior.
Oh, wow.
Which was basically a new house.
Wow. That's a lot of fears.
So we were getting ready to talk about maintenance anyhow, Barbara, so this is a perfect question. Jayson, what would you tell her in terms of, or everyone that's listening, in terms of just regular watering of the foundation? What's the frequency and maybe the duration of that watering when you do it?
So we have watering standards that we go by, and I'm going to read off of those just for her. And this, remember, all this kind of depends on what the precipitation is that we're experiencing. So, Mother Nature kind of dictates how much you should and shouldn't be watering. And down in San Antonio, there's not a lot of rain sometimes. So we got 3 inches last week, and I was elated. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, it rained this month. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy. So what we do is we'll say the soaker hose should be used for about an hour and a half to 2 hours, increased by 30 minutes in areas with large bushes or a lot of foliage, all the way around the home, and use this schedule. Below 60-degree days, usually it's not necessary unless we don't have a lot of rain, unless we're in a drought, okay? 60 to 75-degree days. 60, 75-degree days, you usually do it once per week at that 1.5 to 2 hour increment. 75 to 95-degree days? Yes. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
What flow rate would I do it at for an hour and a half? Just full on?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Yeah, she asked about the flow rate. Normally, Barbara, at least the soaker hoses I use, there's a disc on the access or the point of the hose where you attach it to the hose bib. It's going to limit the flow, so you can crank that up or down. It's going to limit the amount of water that is going through that system. So I think it's more about the duration, like he said. As per the temperature. So it's a valid question. And I think you said you were doing it once a week. That's probably the bigger issue, is the lack of frequency there during the hotter months.
I've been doing it. If it's over, and I'll let him finish, and I'll say what I've been doing. I've been trying to be really smart, but of course I can't see it because it's about 6 inches.
What I typically tell people, and I love what you created was an in-ground soaker hose system. I usually tell people that the black permeable hose that you can get like at Home Depot, that's like $20 for a roll of like 50 foot. It is super great because you place that a foot to 2 feet away from the home, and what you're really trying to do is you're trying to saturate deep into the soil and cause that soil to swell up a foot to 2 feet away from the home. When that soil swells up, it's going to press up against the house, kind of holding it in place a little bit. Now, I'll finish with the little bit of information I got left. 75 to 95 degree days, it's 2 times per week. 95 degrees or higher, 3 times per week, staggered. So what I'm going to get to, though, is, ma'am, Ms. Barbara, it sounds like you have a existing issue that needs to be fixed, repaired, versus your watering plan not being adequate, okay? I know that's, like, not what you wanted to hear, but I always equate things to, in this instance, this is like taking your car to get an oil change whenever the engine is knocking. It needs to be fixed. Now, and then after that repair, we should be talking about our maintenance schedule and stuff like that.
Sure.
But
so
it sounds like you're really trying to do the right thing. That's the most important part, is you're trying to do the right thing, and we need to move forward and get our repair done.
And I would summarize it this way: there's a point of no return, right? And I've had you guys out, I've had other companies out. Like I said, I get multiple bids in most situations, and there have been cases where they said, if you just picking up a new house, they say if you just water this perimeter here, maybe just this one side regularly, you will recover that. But at some point, it goes too far, right? And that no amount of watering is going to correct the problem. So, Barbara, that is a great question, though, and you might shop around. Right, get multiple opinions, and ultimately, if I need to, I can go to a structural engineer. Cost $400 or $500. Get another opinion. And you guys, all good foundation companies, you will be bringing out an engineer to validate your plan and to validate the work when it's done, which is a good thing to do.
Yes, I always also, and I know this is like the worst thing for someone who's in business to do. I always tell people, if you're iffy about anything, go get at least 3, different estimates. You're gonna get it, the truth will come out in the wash. And if you're not happy with those 3, get another couple too. Make it an odd number. There's going to be some guys you can throw out of the mix just by the interaction you have with the evaluator, or maybe you go and look up the company online and see they have bad reviews, or maybe just his evaluation just doesn't seem, it just seems kind of off. Those sort of things. It'll keep your guys in line, the people that you're dealing with on a regular basis.
Sure, multiple bids.
That's just honest, Multiple bids is always the best way to go.
We talk about that at Lifestyles all the time. In fact, there's a class coming up mid-September here in a few days, talking about building a scope of work, and part of that will be getting that budget together. Well, you may get that low bid, you may get that high bid, you may get that bid in the middle. Maybe that's who you go with, who you're comfortable with. Like you said, reputation. That's where networking and having a group like Lifestyles around you, where you can go out and talk to individuals that have used Straight Line, that have used other companies, get their feedback as well. They're going to shoot you honest, your fellow investors. So we talked a little bit about maintenance with the soaker hose. Earlier in the show, you mentioned proper gutter systems, and you can install, obviously, French drains to take the water away from the house. We're running out of time, so we're going to go ahead and stop here. And Jayson, I do want to thank you heartily for joining us today. A lot of great information. Foundation repair, it's pivotal to your business. Having a team around you is pivotal for your business.
Yes, sir.
If you need to get a hold of Straight Line Foundation, you can reach them at 817-640-1000 or straightlinefoundationrepair.com. If you're interested in learning more about Lifestyles, go to freeworkshoplivestream.com. Thanks for listening, and remember, it's not the money, it's the lifestyle.
The Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show is for entertainment purposes only. Please consult a professional regarding your personal investment needs. Nothing presented on the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show constitutes an endorsement, recommendation, offer, or solicitation to buy or sell any product or security.